love as I define it, true love, absolute love, universal love, not the human sort of idea of love, is the recognition of indivisibility, of unity, of sameness, of oneness. So how can we make love real within the conceptual world? In other words, within the relative world of interaction, of relationship, of you and your life. When we say find love in everything, it's a bit of a misnomer. We've got it backwards because love is the natural recognition. Love is the natural state. So if we must find love in everything, it means we've already made a mistake, an error in perception, an error in thinking. We are already misperceiving the situation because hello everyone, welcome. Can you hear me? Okay. All right, finding love in everything. I want to leave quite a bit of space this session for your interactions with me, your Q&A. One of the reasons being that I think this topic lends itself to integration, where it really meets the road of your life, so to speak. So I want to make it as real as we can possibly make it, because I can speak to you about lovely states of love and unity and so on. But what's the use of that specifically to the topic of finding it in everything if we don't apply it to everything, and if we don't uncover how we can find it in all kinds of situations and all kinds of states of mind and all kinds of people and things and so on. So mostly I want to be really real in this session, so to speak. There's plenty of sessions where we speak about the state of love in a different way, and we are going to access this. But then I want to highlight especially the finding it in everything part. And there is, as always, a few levels or ways of seeing this that will greatly help you as such. So, quick recap of my definition of love, which I have talked about quite a bit in the love session, specifically what is love, or what the heck is even love. And I will be brief, because again, I want to bring it down to earth, so to speak, but love essentially, so not the nature of the Disney movie stories, but the actual nature of love itself is not a word, first of all. So the word love obviously is meaningless unless you kind of know where it's pointing to. So my definition of love is not really definition, but I can explain again how to access this, or why love is what love is. In essence, love is the recognition of a single thing or being, of something that appears to be other than itself, but then the recognition that actually in truth it's indivisible. It is inseparable. So we have one tablecloth. The one tablecloth, if you pinch it in two places and you create two little mountain shapes in that singular tablecloth, the tablecloth can now look at itself and it looks like, hey, this is me and this is the other. The moment there is that recognition of that intrinsic nature, the intrinsic awareness, the intrinsic fabric, so to speak, in the analogy, of the tablecloth, when the one peak is conversing with the other peak or interacting with the other peak, but it's recognizing the intrinsic unity of the two, what we then call love is what is emanated, so to speak. It's the energy that is felt, that is known, that is recognized. So in a sense, there is unity before there is love, so to speak, in the hierarchy of metaphysics. So the difference between love and unity is simply that unity, recognizing its own unity, adds the dimension of what we call love. It's the recognition of unity, essentially. So it was, in its simplest terms, perhaps, love as I define it, true love, absolute love, universal love, not the human sort of idea of love, but actual, real, what we call love, is the recognition of indivisibility, of unity, of sameness, of oneness. Now, to access this state of love, you need, in a sense, you need to be enlightened. So, hence again, the idea of bringing it down to earth, because not everyone is going to sit in their little yogic chamber for half their day and focus on the highest metaphysical states of oneness and merging with the ocean of intrinsic awareness. Some of you might, but a lot of you come here slightly more casually, and that's fine. So how can we make love real within the conceptual world? In other words, within the relative world of interaction, of relationship, of you and your life. That is a little bit more tricky to do. It's a little bit more difficult to do if there has not been this true understanding of what love is, this true recognition. So it is a crucial element of truly being able to bring love into things, or to find love in things. It simply means that the tablecloth, your consciousness in other words, must be able to recognize, no matter the shape the tablecloth takes, the intrinsic nature of the tablecloth, the material instead of the form. So if you're able to recognize that no matter what shape you create out of the tablecloth, if you can forego the shape and prioritize or emphasize the material, the fabric of the tablecloth, then you're that much closer to recognizing and finding love in whatever form your life might take. Now, obviously, your life is not a tablecloth, so it is just an analogy. But I think you get the idea, at least conceptually, that if we wish to find love in everything, or for starters, in something, then we must. And if love is the recognition of inseparability, or unity, or sameness, or oneness, then somehow we must access that recognition of oneness, even if only intellectually, for starters. But I do want you to keep this in mind, that love is the recognition of unity, or sameness, or oneness. And keep the tablecloth analogy in mind, picturing yourself as one of the pinched up, mountain-shaped forms within the tablecloth, and everyone else as all the other little mountain peaks, so to speak. But also the circumstances in your life, your bank account, the things that go well, the things that don't go well, the things you desire, the things you avoid, and so on and so forth. So every experience can be seen within this analogy as being an appearance, a form of this tablecloth. It's so easy for us to recognize the form and the difference. It's so easy, it's so evident, it's so obvious, it's so blatantly obvious that my mountain-shaped portion of the tablecloth is seemingly at a distance from yours, and it looks a little prettier than yours does, for instance, or it's a little bigger than yours is, or it's a little whatever. So these differences are very easy to us, and the result is judgment. The result is a feeling of separation. The result is a feeling of smallness and division, and so on. So when we say find love in everything, it's a bit of a misnomer. We've got it backwards, because love is the natural recognition. Love is the natural state. So if we must find love in everything, it means we've already made a mistake, an error in perception, an error in thinking. We are already misperceiving the situation, because obviously the tablecloth is the tablecloth no matter what shape it takes. This is natural. This is naturally evident, at least to the enlightened state, which again is the natural state of yourself as we speak. So the idea of trying to find love in everything is a little bit of it's missing the prerequisite delusion. So let's talk a little bit about that. Because if we can loosen up, soften that illusion, the delusion, again, an illusion that is believed in becomes a delusion, right? Maya is neutral. Maya being this sort of Indian word for illusion. But samsara means basically suffering, the wheel of reincarnation and so on and so forth. Maya is fine. Maya is neutral. Maya is the tablecloth taking shapes in different ways. It's the ocean producing different waves. It doesn't matter. It's neutral. You could call it play even, right? It's also called lila, play. But Maya turns into samsara when it's believed that whatever appears as part of this Maya, as part of this illusion, as part of your perception, the moment you believe in what you see, you're in samsara. And what does it mean to believe in what you see? Let's analyze this, because if we can get to the core of this, we can simply remove the veil and let love shine forth, and then you will have found love in everything, or rather, you will have taken away the veil that obscures love, and that produces the idea, the illusion of everything to begin with. Everything as in multiple things, all together combined. So, illusion is neutral. It's harmless, essentially. But when it's believed in, it becomes harmful. It causes suffering, right? So Maya turns into samsara, or illusion becomes delusion, when the illusion is believed in. Now, what does it mean to believe in an illusion? Something appears. It could be anything. So you can look around your room right now. Or it can even be the glasses on your nose, or the hair dangling in front of your eyes, or the pen in your finger, or your computer screen. Doesn't matter. Pick something. The moment you're defining this, the moment you're labeling whatever this object is, you're already in samsara. Because you no longer see it as play. You've given it meaning. You've given it a label. And you're believing in the independent existence of that object. Let's say it's a pen, but it could be anything. It could be a feeling too, could be a thought, could be a person, a desire. But let's take something simple and tangible like a pen. The moment you think there's actually a pen there, which you have no evidence for, you're in samsara. You're assuming something. You're assuming something into being. Not really, but it appears now that you have conjured something up into existence. You've conjured up a pen into being. It's like that famous Zen saying, the moment you teach a child that a bird is a bird, it will never see the bird again. So the moment we label something, we stop seeing love. And babies are typically still more familiar or connected, you could say, to this natural recognition of love. That's why they're just, unless they're uncomfortable, but they're just this joyful bundle of smiles and giggles and love, because they're just naturally not placing anything on top of it. They're not labeling a bird as a bird yet. So they literally don't see a bird. See if you can understand that. A baby does not see a bird, or a pen in this case. Literally, I mean that literally. The baby does not perceive a bird. The baby does not see a pen. Not in a manner of speaking, it doesn't see it. It hasn't conjured it up yet. And the evidence of this is hiding in plain sight of your direct experience right now. Meaning there is so many things that you could now, in hindsight, point out that are in your room, like a piece of art, or a wall, or a painting, or a couch. But you did not perceive those things when we were talking about the pen or the baby. In the same way, the baby doesn't even perceive the pen when it's in front of its face. It doesn't see a bird when it's flying or when it's resting on the table or whatever. In just the same way that right now, you do not perceive the wall behind your computer, although now you do. But a second ago, you did not, because you did not conjure it up. You see? I'm doing this exercise to give you a little taste, a little hint of what the natural state feels like if you can refrain, meaning stop doing something, if you can refrain from conjuring things into being, into apparent being. And again, you're doing this already right now with everything you're not conjuring up right now. But unconsciously, you assume that these things are all constantly there and that they're real, that they're independently real. But even when you're looking at it, it's not really what you think that it is. So what you're aware of when you start labeling something or you reference something is a fictitious idea. It's not reality. A bird is not actually a bird. Not just a word, but the conceptualization of a bird. The bird is not actually a bird. Sounds a little silly to say, but it's true. Just like a pen is not actually a pen. Like, where do you define, where does the pen begin exactly? And if it can't write anymore, is it still a pen? If it's empty of ink, is it still a pen? If the plastic melts, is it still a pen? How far into the plastic exactly does creation become pen? Is it one plank distance from what you observe as the very outer shell of the pen? Where does the pen begin truly? Does it begin with the plastic molecules? What about the space in between? Is that the pen as well? And what if you remove all the plastic molecules and you're left with just the space? Is that still a pen? If you take away one of these elements or one of those plastic molecules, is it still the same pen? Is it still a pen to begin with? So you get the idea. We conjure things up with our very powerful minds, and then we believe in these things. So Maya is the illusion of a pen that you can pick up and write with and play with and write a book with, if you will. But samsara, or delusion, is believing that the pen is real, that it has an actual existence as a pen that exists whether or not you conjure it up within your mind. The best analogy we have for this is probably the dream state at night. So you go to sleep, then within your mind, within your consciousness, you dream up a body. So within your dream you have a body. The body has ears, the body has eyes, the body has a nose, it has all the senses. And then with this fake body, with the fake senses, you hear sounds. You hear fake sounds. And then you see fake sights. And you interact with fake people. And you interact through your fake body. But in the dream, it seems all impeccably real. It seems irrefutably there. It seems independently real. In your dream, you don't go, hey, this is a dream, unless you're lucid dreaming, which would be the equivalent of sort of a basic level of awakening in the waking dream. So when you're lucid dreaming, you're actually aware while you're dreaming that it is just a dream. But typically, you don't have this realization until you wake up. And then you go, that entire world, that entire landscape, that entire dream scenario, all my feelings, all my emotions, even my own body. I could hear sounds with ears I didn't have. I could see sights with eyes I didn't have. It was all a dream. So then you realize, well, the pen in my dream wasn't actually a pen. It was the canvas of the dreaming mind. It was the fabric of the tablecloth. It was the very substance of this intrinsic consciousness that hears my voice as we speak. So you see, when we refrain from labeling things and we refrain from assuming that there's an actual pen that actually independently exists, that is somehow responsible for causing my perception of the pen. That is, that whole world of believing in things to have an independent reality, meaning they exist independent of the dreamer, independent of the perceiver, independent of the knower. That is delusion or samsara. And that is what enlightenment removes. And then what is revealed in that removal of the human layer of meaning and separation and labeling and judgment and so on, what is naturally there is similar but more activated, more conscious, as what you would perceive in a 3-month-old baby that's completely comfortable and smiling back at the smile of his or her mom or dad. That is the natural state. Close to. It's not exactly the natural state, or at least it's not activated, it's not realized. It's sort of an unconscious version of it, a semi-conscious version of it. But it is closer to the state of love than we will be in when we believe in objects as being real things.
Massaro University is a vibrant online community dedicated to accelerating your awakening and activating your purpose for the benefit of all. Join live sessions with Bentinho and workshops led by experienced facilitators. Deepen your wisdom, empowerment, and self-knowledge, and experience life-changing shifts week after week. At Massaro University, finding like-hearted seekers is easy and inevitable. Lifelong friendships and a shared purpose fuel profound personal and collective growth. Create your free account today at massaro.university and step into a community that's designed to elevate every aspect of your life.
So what happens when you let go of this concept of things? And if you have one thing and multiple things, then now we can talk about, everything. So finding love in everything, again, is an illusion, because you will find love in everything by no longer perceiving anything, in a sense. But the moment you put something there, something there in your own mind, you conjure it up, because again, the wall doesn't exist until you conjure it up. Now you're aware of a wall. If you don't conjure up anything, while you're writing your book with that pen, or while you're staring at that wall during a meditation, but if you don't conjure up any idea about wall, when you don't project separation and reality onto what is, then what is will take on a very different experience. And that's what I meant when I said the child actually does not experience a bird, literally. The bird can be right on its nose. The child, the young child, that is, does not experience a bird. It experiences isness. In some way, shape, or form, you could say, okay, there's some color there and there's some shape there, but even color and shape needs your mind to agree with before you will experience them. Just like in your dream, you will not experience a room that you're not in your dream until you conjure it up. You agree to have that projection take place. Now, for some reason, we don't recognize that this is exactly what we're doing in the waking state as well. There's really no difference. If there is, it's very little. It's a very marginal difference between the dream state and the waking state. The mechanism is essentially the same. You are an intrinsic sentient consciousness that doesn't know boundaries, it doesn't know separation. And your mind has the power to give shape, to give play, to give expression, to give form to things. And that is innately a gift. It is innately neutral, meaning free of suffering, innately. However, the way that we've utilized that, the way we've believed in what we project, causes samsara or delusion, and so on and so forth. So what if we could simply stop doing that for a moment? It would be a much faster way to access love than to actually try to define what love is and then find it in everything that doesn't exist in the first place. Because you see, it's quite a burden to try to find love in everything that doesn't exist. I mean, that sounds like a bit of a puzzle that you could spend your whole life trying to figure out. But what if it's just not there to begin with, and all there is love? Then wouldn't that be easier? If you just are able to recognize the reality of love in the absence, projecting the unreality of everything, then love finds itself throughout what you would call everything. Because love is not form-bound, just like the tablecloth remains tablecloth no matter what shape it takes. Right? So your intrinsic awareness does not go anywhere. It's hearing these words just as much as it was hearing the words 5 minutes ago, and 10 minutes ago, and 20 minutes ago. So intrinsic awareness does not leave you. And this is different than your mental awareness, your intellectual awareness, okay? Intrinsic awareness essentially equals love because this intrinsic awareness doesn't produce a world of separate things. It doesn't conjure up these things to begin with. Because it doesn't conjure that up, the natural state of isness or suchness of this intrinsic awareness is what we have called love, because it recognizes itself no matter what's appearing. It can be a bird, it can be a pen, it can be pain, it can be pleasure. It can be love, it can be hatred. But intrinsic awareness is able to recognize its own natural state far easier when the mind doesn't project things on top of it. But again, the moment we project things on top of this basic awareness, we now have apparently a few things that we have to deal with and that we have to somehow scrutinize and dissect and analyze to find love inside of these things. No, good luck trying to find love inside of a pen. So it's a bit of a catchphrase, find love in everything. It's not really technically an accurate thing that we can exercise. Which is greatly liberating when you accept that. When you're like, wait a second, I don't have to love my neighbor. I don't have to find love in my neighbor. I don't. Now, don't worry, we'll get there, because like I said, we want to make this real. We want to keep it real. But again, the foundation of making it real is that you understand the actual mechanics at play here. So you don't have to find love in everything in the typical sense. You just have to find love. Then carry that love in your recognition, and then wherever you go, there love shall be. Whenever you say hi to your neighbor, there love shall be. So don't go out of your way to find love inside of your neighbor, because that might be inappropriate and not entirely understood or well received. But if you are love and you recognize love, then when you are encountering this neighbor that your mind doesn't really like, then love shall be there, along with perhaps your dislike. So your dislike can also be there, because otherwise we're not finding love in everything, right? So when we are with love, then love is with us. It's really that simple. And when we are with love, that means even our dislikes and even our triggers are then naturally bathed, if you will, in a recognition of love. Now, obviously, the intensity of this love, the brightness of this love, depends on how completely you have surrendered to that and accepted that and recognized it. So right now, if you put two hands in front of your face, you can choose to highlight one or the other. You can focus on the left hand, and the right hand kind of disappears like the bird to the child or to the baby. And the left hand becomes the bird as the adult experiences the bird. It becomes tangible, it becomes real. You're highlighting it. And if you switch to the right hand, the left hand starts to fade into sort of this soup of isness that is undefined, that's not really that tangible. And you create this, what adults tend to do, you conjure up this right hand specifically. Now you can emphasize one thing over the other, and it's really that simple. You use your attention to do that. It's the power of attention. So let's say that you bump into this neighbor that you've had an argument with and you don't like and you'd rather avoid, but hey, there he is in the same grocery store as you. And there's this awkward moment. Now, are you supposed to say hi, but you're still angry with each other? So there you are. No, you're not going to analyze this neighbor and try to find love in your neighbor. But what if before your grocery store trip, you were vibrant with love? Love was with you because you were with love. You were in the recognition of this unity. And so you had a momentum there. It was highlighted, like the right hand was highlighted just now. It was highlighted to you. It was emphasized. So therefore, love was with you. The natural state was with you. Now, if you bump into him or her, you will find that your trigger is meaningless, depending on the intensity with which you were with love and love was with you. But let's say that you were at 99% brightness. You were 99% with love and only 1% with this idea of physical reality. You were really highlighting the right hand, so to speak. You were really highlighting love, the unity. You were recognizing on your way to the grocery store. You were recognizing, not in things, you were just recognizing the unity of all things intuitively. Through that intrinsic awareness that's found at the basis of every experience. That intuitive sense of oneness and wholeness, you were so present to that all you needed was 1% to function and to know what you want to get from the grocery store and how to get there and so on. Call that sort of the practical ego. But 99% of you was vividly present to the real nature of things. Love, unity. And so you bump into this neighbor and you're not triggered at all. And you can see his awkwardness, and there is nothing but sort of this spacious compassion, intrinsic in this awareness, intrinsic in this love, that's kind of diffusing the whole situation, that perhaps gives a smile or makes just the right joke to sort of clear that whole argument up right there and then. Or maybe that doesn't happen. Maybe there's no obvious resolution in the situation, but nevertheless, you felt nothing but love for your neighbor. Still doesn't mean you'd like to live together with this person, because there's also a love for your own recognition that you just really don't like the dude. And that's also bathed in love, because you were strongly present to the nature of isness, which just so happened to include the form and shape and color of your neighbor. But you didn't go out of your way to say, hey, look, there is my neighbor, this real asshole that lives right next to me. I can measure it. It's 15 meters away from my front door. He lives there all the time. I'm probably in his aura half the time. And when I'm sleeping, I'm probably sharing my dream space with him. And I hate the dude. He doesn't know how to be a proper neighbor. That whole story, again, the 3-month-old baby doesn't see that. Just like the 3-month-old baby doesn't conjure up the bird or the pen. It's swimming in sort of an ocean of isness that right now you are swimming in. If it wasn't for you focusing so much on the 1% defined object that's right now in your space, such as me speaking. If you didn't conjure that up, and right now as I speak, you can dissolve that, you can soften that. You cannot project that I'm another being outside of yourself that's sitting on the other side of the world, perhaps, talking into a camera. You don't have to create that. There is no evidence for this. There is no evidence in your direct experience that that's the case. None whatsoever. It's a complete assumption. It's a projection, just like you project things in your dream state at night. It's an assumption. What you know for real is that you are, is that I am. Right now, all you can say for sure in your direct perception is that there is an intrinsic awareness. And within that awareness, there is some shaping that's happening, some forming, some formulation of colors and sensations and so on. But even going in that direction is already taking it too far into assumptions, to call it color, to call it shape, to call it size. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. And over time, they can perfectly well coexist. But to quote unquote, enlighten yourself, you want to get into the habit of practicing not giving any meaning to anything and trusting that, not making that some kind of a nihilistic picture of reality, or some kind of a negative or loss-based image, like, oh, if I don't give meaning to my life all the time, then what will become of me? What am I then? Don't be afraid of that. Just find out. Find out what the tablecloth is made of, instead of being so attached to the form that it takes, right? So right now, as you listen to me speak, you could, hypothetically, if you wanted to, not define me at all. Don't project me. See if you can do that. Because the projecting is automatic. It's not just when you consciously think of me. You hop onto the session and automatically you are assuming and feeling as if I am separate from you and you're about to listen to me talk to somebody else, talk to you. There is no evidence for this. Don't assume anything. Go to your direct perception only. Bring your awareness to the present moment and notice that you can't say anything about your experience without deluding yourself, without moving away from the suchness, the isness, the intrinsicness, the oneness of this moment. And you may begin to notice how when you don't project an other thing or person, when you just identify that part of your mind that does that automatically, if you can get a sense of where that exists within your mind, this projection habit, this like, oh yeah, I'm going to go to the grocery store. You don't even think about, oh, there's a real grocery store over there, and I'm going to have to take my real body through real space and time and get over there and move my consciousness from location A to location B. You don't think that, but you assume all that. You're automatically, immediately projecting that entire reality as if it's an independent reality. Now, good luck finding love in the pavement and the grocery store and the distance and the space and the time and having to walk that pocket night to get to the grocery store. You're not going to find love in these things. You see, love is. And the less you project onto love, the more love will be with you. And thus then you will find love in everything, so to speak. But it's just a colloquialism. It's a way of saying it. So I hope this makes sense. And try it, again, try it for a little bit longer right now. I'm speaking to you. And see if you can identify or locate within your own mind. See if you can get a feeling for this projection switch, this projector, like a movie projector. That right now, as I speak, your very tendency is to project a sense of this is a real person outside of you as a real person, and so on. Again, you don't think this consciously, but that's automatically projected. It's subtle. But if you can find the core of that projection, you can turn it off. At least for 2 to 5 seconds. And when you stop projecting the world out there for just 2 to 5 seconds, what remains is nothing but intrinsic awareness, aka the tablecloth, aware of its own nature. What will then be the result? We call it love. But it's the recognition of sameness, of oneness, of suchness. It's just being. So we don't have to find love in anything. In fact, we can't, because there is nothing but love, or isness. You see? So it's quite simple, but it's subtle. I'll give you that. So I understand if your mind is in a little bit of a noodle about this. But I think you get the basic concept. So now all that this requires is that you drop what you think you know over and over again. This is why we often suggest that humility is the way to go in spirituality. That not knowing is actually the path to knowing yourself. Not knowing anything. Because again, the moment you insist upon something you think you know, not only are you assuming all these independently real things, which then automatically assume that you are an independently real thing, that is separate, that is small, that is vulnerable, that exists inside of a real world of space-time. There is no evidence for this. Again, please recognize, there is no evidence for space and time. There is no evidence for the existence of real objects. If you stop assuming, stop projecting, and you become present to the only thing that is scientifically real, meaning the only thing that can be proven. I exist. And this existence happens to be aware, or you could say this awareness happens to exist. But that knowledge, that knowingness, I am, is the basis of literally every experience and assumption and scientific discovery out there. But in order to make all these scientific discoveries, we have to first assume that there's a bunch of things out there. So the most scientific way to approach life is to go based off of what you know, not off of assumptions, right? If we want to be scientific about something, we can't just assume a bunch of things. We got to be objective. The most objective thing in all of existence is the subject. The most objective thing in all of existence is the subject. Because all objects are subjected to the subject. All experience depends on I am, or awareness. Therefore, awareness, the subject, is objectively objective all the time, whereas everything else that we call objective or objects change and come and go, and we can't even find it, and a baby doesn't agree with us that that's a bird. So all of that's very unscientific, because science is basically about trying to find some objective truths here. But the most objective truth about everything, which most scientists tend to overlook or not believe in or dismiss because it's a very inconvenient, flipping the world inside out perspective that will render most of their research incomplete or flawed, and they won't know where to go anymore. And I don't blame them. But there's relative sciences about the stars and about gravity and all that, which is great. Technology. But the real science, okay, the ultimate science, is about what's actually real. And the only thing we can actually say is real is that I know that I am. Everything else needs inference, needs belief, needs superstition, needs religion. So even the hardcore scientist that believes that there's all these things out there that are objectively real is, in essence, a religious nutcase, is the most religious person, even though they attempt to be most scientific and objective. But the only thing that's objectively true is I am. Everything else needs the mind to conjure it up, the mind to believe in something, the mind to describe something. So again, this is Buddha nature. This is the natural state. This is intrinsic awareness. It's already with you. You just have to stop covering it up with the insistence upon I know this and I know that and this is real and that's real. And then love will naturally be with you. The recognition of sameness or oneness, familiarity with all things will naturally be with you. And then the pen still, still works. You can still write with it. Doesn't stop working. And your neighbor is probably still annoying. But you will have found love in the presence of that neighbor. Because you've not defined your neighbor as being something outside of your presence. It's really this simple, essentially. Now, if we want to step this down a little bit to more relative conceptual reality, we definitely can. And like I said, in a minute or a few minutes, we'll go into some Q&A. And you can ask your questions and pose your challenges. But essentially, there is no other way to find love in a particular thing, whether it's your neighbor or something evil or something innocent or goat cheese that you may not like, which I would understand. Because it stinks. Then it's the same. Love is the same. The oneness is the same. You see? So, but we could come up with techniques to specific examples. Okay, if it's my neighbor that I have difficulty loving, how do I love my neighbor? If it's President Trump or Kamala Harris that I have a difficult time seeing the love in, how do I do it with them specifically? If I have an afflictive emotion come up that is triggering me, how can I see love in that situation? So I'm very happy to go into all these things, and I'm sure that through your questions, we'll step it down a little bit to making it real. So I guess I wanted to start with the basis of what love is and how to actualize it into your direct conscious experience. And again, the bottom line, the summary is, don't project a world. So let's say it's your neighbor, don't project your neighbor. And what you find will be an alleviation of your separation symptoms. There will be relief instantly. Call it liberation if you wish. And what will come instead of that dislike and hatred is love. Even if you still dislike the guy. But the love will be outshining that. Like the right hand will be outshining the left hand. And now the left hand is outshining the right hand. So whatever you emphasize, whatever you highlight, will become your reality, will infuse who you become, what you embody. And ultimately, when we don't project anything for 2 to 5 seconds, and we recognize the intrinsic awareness or nature of being, which remains always, that intrinsic recognition carries with it love. So if you are with that love, if you are with that recognition of sameness, of oneness, of suchness, of here-ness, of presence, then love shall be with you, no matter what shape the dreamscape takes. And the less you go out there to define what it looks like and what it means and how to get better at it, and the more you let it all be as it actually is, not as you project it to be. If you just let the bird be as it actually is, it starts to fade first into colors and shapes. It's no longer a bird, it's just colors and shapes and movement. But when you let go of even giving it color, shape, and movement, when you stop mentally thinking that, projecting that, assuming that, then even your senses start to dissolve into this blissful, overwhelming vibration. And it's kind of like a whiteout. You know, when you're just too blinded, like by a flashbang or something like that, or your TV screen just goes completely white. It's that kind of a metaphysical sensation of, especially if you keep highlighting that love, that love, that love. Now, don't blow a fuse. Take your time with this. But if you really go high into that frequency, just by recognizing it, just by staying with it, just by dissolving your world, letting go, letting it go, letting it go, letting it be as it wants to be. Don't even define it. Don't even see it as colors and shapes, let alone as real things. Don't project realness, and the real reality will assert itself. It will show itself. And when you keep highlighting that sense of pure isness, the formlessness of it, it is like a white metaphysical light will, in a sense, outshine even your sensory perception, to the point where you actually have a difficult time seeing the fucking bird. So you can amp that up however much you want, and you'll have great days in that regard, and you'll have days where that's a little bit more difficult to energetically embody. However, the basis remains the same, because love doesn't just have to be, it can also be a knowing, it can be an honor, it can be a conviction, it can be something you have faith in. And I'm sure we'll get to this in your questions. But then when that faith is strong and when your channels are open, then it will also become experiential, it will become energetic, and you will sort of lift off on that frequency, that white light of source energy. But don't be addicted to that, because that will come and go in your incarnate state. But the love, the conviction of love, the intuitive knowingness of love can always be there, even when you feel like shit, even when you run into the neighbor you don't like, even when you have to eat goat cheese, and so on. Okay, I will end it here, otherwise I will keep talking again forever, and don't want to do that to you guys. So
Thank you for watching this Bentinho live session. Bentinho now hosts these transformative live sessions completely free, offering profound insights and guidance to support your journey. To attend the next live session with Bentinho, simply visit massaro.university and follow the instructions to create your free account.